Can you hear me? Yes, perfect. Okay. So let's start, and thanks. I see some familiar faces here. Thanks for being with us, guys. I know it's the last session of the day. You all are tired, but excited to be with us on this panel. So let me present to you, first of all, my guests and friends, I have to say, starting from my left, Marlo Sweatman, former player, national team player of Jamaica, and as well player from Brooklyn FC and a lot of clubs in Europe as well. Marlo, if you can introduce yourself a little bit, please.
Yeah, hello, I'm Marlo Sweatman, and very happy to be here. As you said, I'm a former Jamaican national team player, professional. I played internationally for 11 years, professionally for 8 years, played in 2019 World Cup, as well as 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐖𝐨𝐬 I work with the Wellness Universe as well, and doing my master's with GIS right now.
Thank you, thank you. And then I have on the other left, on the left side of the pitch, I have Frederique the Laat. Frederique, you are doing a massive job, a massive initiative into this women's game, which is something very new. If you can introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, sure. I'm Frederique. I have no experience on the pitch, but a lot of experience off the pitch, I would say. Yeah, we started Branthlete now, almost a year ago, where we are a market agency fully focused on women's sport. We saw a big opportunity there from club sides, but also for brands to tap in. And we want to change that world and help clubs on their strategic level, but also brands on like campaigns and content to change a bit of this industry. Yeah.
Nice, thanks. And on the very left, I have here Samantha Rosette, which actually he's the captain of Brooklyn FC, club of the USL, and as well. But you are here not only as a captain of your club, but as a co-founder of the TPN. If you can introduce yourself a little, Samantha.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Samantha Rosette. You can call me Sam. I'm an active current player for Brooklyn FC, but I'm also the co-founder of the Players Network. We are the largest women's professional soccer community of women's pro players in the world. We are a growing community every single day. We empower players, we connect players, and we just want them to be able to connect more with each other. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for presenting all of you. I mean, you see today that the name of the panel, which is actually can sounds like a thing familiar to us that are working into the women's game, no? I mean, we are always trying to empower the game to create new path. Samantha, I start from your side because the player network is something very new. How do you think, just try to answer to the title of the panel of today, the player network can help players, women's footballers to reach their potential and to grow the whole movement?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we want the women's game to grow, obviously, as professional players. But we also know that professional players and women's players in general are the ones that need to push that forward. This game doesn't exist without players, and we want to give the players the tools, the knowledge, the connections, the resources that they need to be able to continue to push the game forward, to be able to push their own careers forward. And we do that by creating a platform and community for them to do that on.
Yeah, and I see, I mean, you all see the Brooklyn FC shirts, which I'm very jealous you have, and I'm still not. But actually, of course, I said I would like to, with Samantha, we were thinking on creating some interactions. Of course, everyone that wants to have a picture with the captain of Brooklyn, feel free to then, after the stage, assault you to have a picture with you. I am the first. So there's a queue. Then, but just to know, what you are actually representing here is what I wanted to ask to you, Frederique, because I mean, on a commercial side, that's actually what's all about. No, your agency. How do you think we can try to, reduce the gap and grow in the women's game? There is a lot of things to do, no?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of things to do, but I think it all starts with understanding who your fan is as a club. What we mostly see is when we talk with bigger clubs in Europe is that they do a copy-paste strategy from the men's side to the women's side. And I think it's made sense maybe a couple of years ago when it wasn't as growing as fast, but now you see it's growing very fast. And we have to recognize that people and the audience who come to the game and to the women's game are completely different than from the men's game. And I think it's something beautiful because I know I've been to Ajax-Feyenoord last, I think a couple of months ago, and you will see children and you will see families and you will see mostly female fans. And I think if you as a club understand that your fans are different, then it also you also have to have a completely different strategy as a football club to engage with them, to know what they like. And I think that's where, from a club's perspective, it's that's I think the biggest challenge. And if you understand that and unlock that, I think some clubs in Europe are doing very well in that. We're talking about, for example, about Arsenal, who's really leading the game in that sense. But it's also from brands like Nike or Adidas or even New Balance, for example. It's like seeing what the female football fans want and kind of tapping into that, in a better way, I guess. So, yeah.
Thanks for your answer. I was just like reflecting on your words when you were speaking. Just try to have a question which is out of control. You know how I am, and Marlo knows from last edition in Miami. So they were scared I'm just asking something strange. No, but you all are aware about 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐖𝐨𝐦𝐞, no? Yeah. She's the, for the ones that doesn't know, 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐖𝐨𝐬 is the biggest personality in terms of, on socials. I guess she has 17 million, yes,
something like that. Yeah.
17 million followers on just only on Instagram. How do you evaluate, you all, three of all, evaluate the strategy of Juventus on taking a player which is actually, in Italy, we can have players on the same level of 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐖𝐨𝐬 or better in terms of quality on the pitch. That's granted in terms of statistics and numbers. But you go taking a player, and I saw these numbers, these statistics are crazy. You see the Juventus women channels on Instagram, no? They have an increasing booster when every time 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐖𝐨𝐬 is tagged in. Normally, they have an average of 240, 250,000 viewers. With 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐖𝐨𝐬, they goes to 2 to 4 millions of viewers. Do you think it's a good strategy? These in terms of what? I mean, on the marketing side, okay. On a player side, who want to answer the first? It was not staged, I know. So the first one.
I can go first.
Yeah.
I think that in general, it's an interesting strategy. And it makes sense from a marketing point of view, just because, and we also want, as players, we want the game to grow. We want more and more people to be excited about women's football because they should be. It's an exciting thing to be around and a part of. From my perspective and from a Players Network perspective, empowered players make for empowered teams, which makes for better football, better fan environments, better experiences for everyone involved. So for me, she's very empowered, and that's a great thing. What the club chooses to do with that is a choice, But I think that what's most important is that empowerment is across the board, and it might not always look like Instagram followers or, if a player is famous or not. Sometimes it could be the work that they're doing, even if they're doing really impactful work for one person. If they're like a really incredible mentor for one kid on the sideline of the game, that's equally as important. And so I think that what clubs and what people in football need to know is that an empowered player and empowering players is what is most important for growing the women's game.
You agree? Okay. Okay, no, me too.
What do you think about it?
Look, the thing is, I know, you have two different words that probably they are not speaking between each other. Because you have some players that are feeling sometimes frustrated to see a player which is more famous than others that go behind them, because maybe on the pitch they feel they are better, and probably they are sometimes. But maybe women's game deserve it. At this stage, we still need to have those kind of big shouts to have a name, to start having recognition. And I see, as an Italian, even if I'm not a Juventus fan at all, Inter of Milan fan, let me state, twice.
So everyone knows.
Twice, yeah. But you see that how many, young generations, especially now from Juventus, are supporting Juventus because of Alicia now. So they had an increasing numbers. And this, of course, is reflecting also on revenues and merchandising, and they are buying shirts of the player. And this definitely has a good impact on the system. Clearly, sometimes going on, maybe behind some other that maybe are not that mediatic person, we can say. But anyway, yeah, it was out of curiosity, but it was very funny to understand. Marlo, I come back to you. The panel we have today is, of course, trying to understand, how to reduce the gap eventually and how to see this grow. Your career, your path, which I had the honor to share for the last part of your career on the pitch, comprehended as well, to empower yourself on your personal side, on your professional side, not only on the pitch. So you made your UEFA master as well, you studied. How do you think studying and this aspect can be of impact for players, for women players now?
Yeah, I think education to me is like super important, if not the most important thing. And one thing that I believe is education does not mean that you're sitting in a classroom and you're getting your master's. It can mean anything. It can mean you're coming to a Soccer X convention and you're meeting people, you're reaching out on LinkedIn, you're doing internships, doing whatever you think can help you each day to learn and grow. To me, that's the most important. And that's what I've always tried to do, and do that while I'm playing as well, just because even now that I've retired, I've seen kind of how hard it is to get into the business side of the game, and where I've been an expert my whole life on the field, adding that and connecting it with the education side, I think is very, very helpful for players.
Yeah, I agree. And education, like you will say, doesn't mean only studying at university. Clearly, meaning creating a pathway for what happened next. When a player we are facing, and probably know that you all are aware about one of our clients, 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐖𝐨𝐦𝐞, the player that is playing in Como in Italy, that displayed her CV on a shirt once she finished the season this year. She's 37. She was 2 times the best player of the whole Italian league, the Serie A. She played more than 100 caps in Italian national team. So she was a player that had an influence. And then she said, I'm 37 and I don't know what to do now. Because, of course, also I see the system of education that now you are part of, Marlo, is growing and is helping women's game, pushing, and crashing boundaries. Also universities were not like now you can do an e-campus university sometimes, that allows you as a player to play on the pitch in the meantime, thinking on the future. That's something that is giving impact in a good way, in a good sense. So probably new generation, unfortunately not you as the generation of players that you played on the pitch, can be beneficial, of this change. But anyway, Samantha, let me go back to you. I would like to ask, TPN is something very different. I never heard about that, and we fell in love with your idea, you and your teammates' idea, actually. How do you think TPN can influence the growth of women's game? And a question, if you are focusing on only US market, or you want to then in the future eventually expand to other countries?
I think, first of all, to answer your second question first, majority of our players are from the US, just because it started out as our friends telling our friends, and me and my 2 co-founders are from the US. But we also have played all over the world, and there are plenty of people within our network from Europe, from Asia, from South America. So really, we are a global organization. And I think to answer the first part of your question, how do we see the Players Network influencing the growth of the women's game? We already are in showing that players hold this power as a collective to be able to guide the women's game forward. And we do that by sharing information with one another. we share information on agents, we share information on clubs, we share information on how people are negotiating their contracts. And when we notice when there are instances of players experiencing abuse or exploitation or misconduct or just lack of professional standards, that occurs when players are disempowered, when they are alone, when they don't have all of the right information given to them. And we create a platform and a community where that is no longer the case. We need for players to have that transparency, that clear understanding of how to navigate the system that is currently happening to be able to create a better system. So I think that that's how we're trying to do it.
That's amazing. I mean, there is a word in Spanish, and I have here a friend, Marcos, that knows better than me, which is pasapalabra, no? Like word by word, you understand and you pass informations. And so who's better than players can say something good or bad about clubs without any filter, no? That's actually very, very useful, I see, and I guess. Frederique, we're speaking about players now, and how do you think, well, I mean, which is the role of the players in changing the game?
Yeah, I think it's very valuable to have networks like your network. I think that's super important because I think with growth comes I think the pain of growth, of course, and then people want to maybe take advantage of you, or maybe some facilities aren't there yet who should be there yet. But I think from like an athlete perspective and what they can do, I think is it's super important that you see yourself also a bit more as a brand and see that you're more than an athlete, and position yourself a bit more as an athlete as well. I think not everyone of course is interested in doing that, but the example you gave about 𝐓𝐡𝐞, who perhaps isn't the best football player, but has millions of followers and is now playing at the top club, also says something, right? And I think if you're competing for two right spots of right defenders, and the one has maybe the followers as 𝐓𝐡𝐞, I think she's gonna win. And maybe that's not the best position we're in yet, but I think many players played before just for the passion they have, and of course the love for the game. But now it becomes also a bit more commercialized, and I think we get many questions from agencies and on how can we provide better sponsorship deals for our players. And what we always say, and where we help in as well, is that you have to kind of know who you are as a player. So who is your brand? You're the brand. So what are your values as well? And what kind of brands will suit your brand? So if you're not into, I don't know, cooking, then it will not really make sense if you're gonna sell something with cooking related, for example. So I think it's for growing the game from an athlete side. It's also if they want to have better facilities themselves, then it's also important to become more of a brand themselves. And I think, I think some clubs also use their athletes as a kind of more a marketing vehicle as well. I think what they did at Angel City, I find it quite impressive, is that they said, if you're gonna sell the tickets on your own Instagram, you can also benefit from the revenue of those ticket sales, which eventually helps both sides. So I think that's also the beauty of the women's game. It can be very innovative, and it's kind of a startup environment, of course. And I think, branding yourself is crucial, but also as a club, helping these players to brand themselves.
Thank you. I totally agree with you, and I was usually to call ourselves, all of us working in the women's game, the players on the first, clearly, as a pioneers, no? Because I remember when we started the agency was 2013, there is a lot of people was laughing on that. Come on, if it's women game, who cares? You don't make any monies, you don't make incomes, they will not go. I mean, and then you see now succeeding and having World Cups and having record breakers every year, every season is a record season. So that's amazing to see. No, so for real, I was having a conversation with the guy on the Soccer X TV before, and he was saying, sky is the limit for women's football. Now this is the kind of feeling they are having, which is amazing to see. But, so thanks for the answer. You would say something, yeah?
Yeah, I want to ask you, what do you think as a player agency as well? Is like, what do you think is the how do you grow it, and what is the most important aspect, you think?
Look, clearly it's a generational thing from my side. I mean, if we think that 60 years old guy, old guy that goes to bars and take a beer and start watching women's game, I think we are losing the point. New generations are the ones that are fresh-minded, are ready, and they do not make any differences between men and women. If they love a sport person, they go following him or her. And we are seeing that. I mean, we in the agency, we have Samuele, which is 22 years old. He's the youngest of the agency, and he's having a fresh mind, fresher than us. And he's speaking about players that sometimes not even myself know. I say, how? I'm watching. I was annoying at home. I just, this thing was not even thinkable 10 years ago. So I think clubs and then federation, they are doing this, I see. Maybe slowly, but just focusing on the new generation. Those are the ones that can change for real, can have an impact, can be ready to go to the stadium and say, no, I prefer following, if I support Arsenal, I support Arsenal, men or women, I don't care. If I can go to stadium. And then you see, Marlo, you were like at the FA Cup last day. How many supporters they were?
75,000.
75,000. We're speaking about women's game. 75,000 is huge. It's crazy. I mean, if we were speaking years ago, they say, you all are crazy. This is not happening. 75,000, not for free. They paid the ticket, clearly. And then they have merchandising there. And then all this is generating revenues to clubs. So it's becoming increasingly important for them. And at the end of the game, it's all about money. It's sad to see, but that's true. So if clubs understand the potential, the hidden potential of women's game, then is the moment we are making business. So hopefully young generations, always more and more. But I see, it's only a question of time from my side.
Yeah, I agree. But I also see that in a lot of these clubs, they're also run by the older generation. So it's also making spot for the newer generation with fresh minds and fresh perspectives to come in, I guess.
You wanted to say something, Samantha?
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying. To make room for new generations of people, also more women, to be in those roles and guiding the game forward. I also think understanding that the women's game has gotten to where it has because of the very thankless work of players and people that came before my generation as a player that were playing quality, high-level football for five people in the stands. And they believed in what women's football is now and where it has the trajectory to go. But those people now are the ones that should be leading that charge. They should be the ones in charge of the clubs, in charge of the organizations. And those women are the ones that, like you're talking about before, oftentimes maybe are having a hard time finding a job, which is crazy to me because they truly were the pioneers. We are pioneers by association because of the work that they did.
Yeah,
That's actually true. And the last thing to comment on that, couple of months ago, I came visiting the Olympique Lyonnais now. You all know it's the best club of the century for the women's game. And the thing that caught my attention, clearly, they play Champions League a lot of times in the men's side as well. They have good players. But if you go there, they are so proud of the women's team, more than of the men's team. Why? You say, okay, you found someone, you were lucky. No. If you go to the museum and to the tour of the stadium, there is more thing about women's, more trophies about women's, even because they want more than men. But come on, you have the World Champions League room of the women, and you see all these young generations making pictures and having a selfie with the Champions League of the women, men and women. So that's amazing to see. This is the kind of things that we now need, no, to export, to have these kind of good impacts. You want to say something, yeah?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's also the clubs who now also market themselves as not just like we have a men's team, but we have a men's team and a women's team. And I think that makes a big difference if you, I don't know, if you do a Christmas commercial and you put your women's team in there and your men's team, because it's one club, right? And I think that's what you just said, showcase that Olympique Lyonnais was all about, that we have a super successful women's team, and we're proud of both. And I think that's very important for clubs as well, to recognize that they're both.
Yeah. I completely agree, and I think that then the next step, what's super important from a player side, from a sporting side, is to ensure that the women are getting the same level of exposure and the same quality of resources and structure as well. You can't put your women's team on the front page with the men's team and then not allow them to train at the same facilities or not have the same quality of a locker room. You need to ensure that those players are getting equal treatment or equitable treatment, right? In the case of Lyon, they have way more championships than the men's team. Sorry.
Yeah, true. But that's also so that they're now building an entire complex for the women's team. So hopefully better. Yeah.
And in fact, if you see, the biggest clubs just adopted this kind of approach. That's why maybe they are the biggest clubs, because they, you know, I don't want to say prevent times, but they are staying online on times, so they know how to do things. Even if I had a question for you, because Olympique Lyonnais made something like yesterday. I saw they changed the logo of the club, and everyone went crazy because of that. I mean, on a marketing side, you think is a good move, or at the end, I mean, going far away, or is a mistake?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's a mistake, but it's also because their club or the women's team is bought by Michel Kang, the big investor in women's football, who really wants to change the game. We've spoken with them as our marketing agency as well, and of course you can't completely change all the colors because you're still tied to the Olympic brand, of course. So they still use the same colors, but they said we want an own identity with our own team. And I think I loved it, where they stand for, how they marketed it, how they put their players in front, how they said, like, we are going to go in a new pathway, but we're built on legacy, which you just said. So I am very into where we see now that bigger clubs, for example, Chelsea team also has been bought by an investment and also by the husband of Serena Williams. And really tying away from the men's team and having a dedicated strategy team and dedicated content team on the women's team, because then I think there starts professional football. So yeah.
Amazing. Just to let you know, to the audience, 20 million pounds for a stock of 7-8%, I guess. Just only about that. Okay, Marlo, go back to you. So we were saying there is an increasing need, no, for players to understand when they quit their career, what to do next. I mean, the question is what to do next.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it comes down to, unfortunately, with salaries in the women's game, it's not where it is in the men's game yet, so we don't really have that time and that privilege to take a year or 2 years off after and kind of just live life. So it comes back to preparing yourself while you're in your career, getting the certificates, kind of figuring out what you want to do, having the transitional help with mentors or whatever it can look like. So I definitely think there's more opportunity for that to be given to players while they're still playing. A little bit of my journey was when I was playing in Hungary, I had to decide to play for maybe a lower level team just so I could have the opportunity to go to different places to learn. So there was a time in my career where I was playing for the national team. I was the captain of the national team. I was playing for Hungary, but I was also missing a week of training, going to London to get my UEFA certificates and flying across to Jamaica to play in the games. And it kind of affected my career in a way of I couldn't play at the highest level, but I knew I was preparing myself for after. So unfortunately, that's the situation, but I definitely think there's a need for more opportunities.
Then Marlo, if we think about that, no, sometimes there is a mistaken narrative that this is the poor destiny of women's footballers. But at the end of the game, if you see, no, not focusing on the part of the iceberg of the men's football, where you have top athletes earning millions, but for all the rest, more than 90% of them as well in the men's side, they have to do the same. They have to think on what to do next, because they will not reach that millionaire or billionaires agreement. So is a thing that sometimes is mistaken. Women's footballers need to think on the future. It's not only about that. It's a general issue of football, I guess, no? That is creating problems to players.
Yeah, I guess you could say it's all footballers. My situation in college is they pretty much told me what I had to study. Therefore, I could do this class or this class and get this degree so I could fit it in with the training schedules. And was that what I really wanted to study in my heart? Probably not, but I knew I wanted to be a professional soccer player, so I kind of went with it. So I definitely agree, it's probably all footballers.
Yeah. The thing that is maybe making us a little bit sad is that in the women's game, even the biggest ones have to think sometimes on what to do. So that's the problem. Samantha, you were saying something?
I will say, like, I think that there is a disparity, though, because while there are men's footballers that do have to think about what their career will look like, oftentimes there's a difference in the equality of that, because the men's footballers that are thinking about that often are second, third division professional players. We're talking about first division and top league women's professional players that are having to think about what they're going to do next and potentially have a second job while they're playing, or, you know, trying to decide what that's going to look like. And I think that if we're really talking about parity and equity here for the women's game, we need to be discussing the fact that salaries should be higher, and they should match the trajectory at which the women's game is growing.
And do you also, in your network, talk with each other about, okay, you have to prepare yourself for after your career, and how do you do it? Because I don't think clubs provide that help, right?
Yeah, it depends on the club. Some clubs do, some clubs don't, but yeah, we talk about it in the network. Marlo's a part of the network, and she's actually been a really amazing advocate for that for some of our players, and in helping them navigate to do that. But I think it's just, again, like about sharing that information, or if there's a coaching opportunity, or if there's a course that someone can take or something like that. There are actually a lot of opportunities in coaching that are being provided now to players while they're currently in their career. So, and a lot of organizations like US Soccer and the USL and the NWSL are providing those for players now at a discounted rate, so that is helpful. But again, you have to understand that you're juggling that with a professional schedule of trying to perform.
Yeah, totally agree. And Samantha, I stay with you. I mean, if you have to hope for something that the stakeholders today, you know, can learn from the TPN perspective, what is it? What's it all about?
I would hope that the stakeholders here today and everybody understand the power that players hold, and that the power that we hold is even larger as a collective, and that collective is growing. I think that I want everybody in football to understand and see that football doesn't exist without players. And so providing and ensuring that players have a positive professional experience at every club, at every level of the game, whether that be structure, whether that be resources, whether that be interacting with agents, whether that be fan experiences, whether that be community engagement, having a high quality of that for players is so important to push the game forward, because when players have better experiences, the game grows. And in our network, we talk about those experiences and we share them, and there's power in that. And the power that the players hold in our network and beyond our network, just in a general sense, is in finding that collective power, and we have that. So I want people to understand that that's there, and to tap into it also.
Thank you. Another question for you, Frederique. We were speaking about the growth, no? Commercial growth. So on that side, I would say fan engagement is something that sometimes is missed, I mean, in women's game. What do you think clubs need to empower for fan engagement to make the women's game grow?
Yeah, I think fan engagement in women's football is, I think, the biggest hurdle, I guess, and also the biggest opportunity. So if we talk with clubs, you generally see that they also think like, okay, how can we convert those people in our existing database to the women's side? So I think that's, of course, one super important aspect. But I think they generally overlook that many of their fans aren't in their database yet, if you look at it from the women's games side. And I think there is the biggest opportunity for clubs. So if you think about it, so I don't know, if I grew up in an Ajax household and I was an Ajax fan, but on a later stage I became fan of women's football. I wasn't born as a women's football fan. And my entry point to women's football was actually the style of a player I saw on Instagram. And I loved her style, her clothing style. And I thought, okay, I want to copy that. Oh, she's also a footballer. I became a big fan. Now I have, I think, maybe 8 jerseys of Arsenal in my closet. And I'm a super fan, I would say, right? So I think finding the right entry points for clubs to see where your fans can be, because they aren't yet in your database, because they aren't coming to your club yet, and see how can you connect with these people. And I think that's where fan engagement can take the next level and the next step. So don't like copy paste just a strategy from the men's side. We as fans want to see something different. So maybe tap in more to the fashion side, but also we're big on personalities. And I think when men's football, we're maybe more interested in the technical part of the game. And in women's football, we're more interested in who is that person. So I think there are so many things where clubs can step it up and really think differently, and then really don't do what you do at the men's game. Maybe some aspects, but really think, okay, who are those fans? And I saw this great thing of Chelsea, who did a bottomless brunch, for example, for the women's game before, you know. And I thought, yeah, at the men's game you can't do that. That would be go completely wrong, of course, because English people would burst. But from the women's side, I thought it was great. We love it. We love to drink champagne and have some food before we go out to see a match. And I think that are the examples of, maybe this is a very a different example, but I think it showcases that Chelsea really got what it takes to kind of engage with their fans and their female fans and what they want and what they like. And I think that's where the opportunity within women's football is. And there's so many opportunities, because you can have lifestyle, you can have music, you can have fashion, but you can, everything. Maybe education, if someone, is on university and wants to share a bit more on that, that's also fine. So finding these entry points, which are different than the men's side, I think is crucial to grow the women's game.
You can try to have interactions on different sides of the world, of the industry, as well as we were speaking before about Juventus, and Alicia speaking on that side as well. I remember then that the general director of Juventus told us that their strategy was having different sponsors from the two teams, the men and the women's side, because they want that a supporter of Juventus women can recognize himself or herself with the shirt. You're supporting Juventus women, even if it's the same club. And this strategy is like now repaying. You see now with Alicia Lehmann, which is like pushing in terms of, but this thing probably will generate a sign of, representing the club for the supporter as well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So, yes, that's very, very interesting. And Marlo, going back to you, there is a lot of changes that still have to do in women's game, no? To try to make it developing. What do you think we will need now, on your perspective, to make it grow the game?
I think doing things like this, just getting awareness for the women's game, opening up the TPN group and having players help players and offering more services to the players, whether that be on the mental health side of the game, on creating opportunities for post-career or anything on like recovery and nutrition, all that stuff. So I think it's just a matter of opening up the conversation and getting more awareness towards it.
That's amazing. So if before giving the floor to the audience for a long queue of questions, I'm sure you all have now at 4:40. What time is it? 4:45. Please give a big round of applause to these ladies that were part of the panel. Thanks for being here. It's a good round of applause, we can say, yeah. I don't know if you have any questions from this. Yeah, you have here. I don't know if you want to come here or I can try to.
No, it's okay. No.
I will not.
I'm Chris Dolby. I'm with the Sports and Crime Briefing. Because you were bringing up Alicia, but there was a point that was made earlier about the different ways of recognizing women and what they're doing in their community. I think that's to Sam this question. In the men's game, I've spoken to athletes who say it's very difficult for the less big personalities to emerge, right? If you're not a Lamine Yamal or a Ronaldo, if you don't have 2 million followers, it's difficult to get noticed off the pitch. What recommendations do you have for female players who may not be an Alicia Bean, right? Who may have value or who may offer something in a different way, and who don't know how to stand out?
I think my answer to this actually comes back to a conversation that we were having earlier about the player tapping into being their authentic self and understanding who they are, right? Like a player might not be this huge personality that wants to be huge on social media, but if they really care about coaching kids, they can coach 1, 2 kids, even just not coach them, but just talk to them after a game and be authentic about who they are that way. They can do a lot of things to be able to own that, and I think that there are so many ways that they can tap into that and be able to show who they are while still navigating the space to make room for themselves, right? In a way that maybe people haven't made room for them before.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's all about getting to know yourself and where you can maybe stand out from a certain perspective. We were helping this golfer, was a lady, and I think she was what you said. She wasn't really standing out, but she was maybe even a bit shy. But she was really big on data and on trying to improve herself every day. And we said, now, well, maybe that's your point to shine, right? So I don't think it's always about being the bad guy or having the biggest mouth or being the best on the pitch. I think it's finding the sweet spot where you are genuinely authentic, because if you're not, people will see it. And finding a way to stand out on your own premises, yeah.
Okay, other questions? Yes, over there.
Hi, thank you for the panel. It's really interesting. Just I have a question on maybe your perspectives on how important competition is within the women's game. So you know, of course, like I'm also an Arsenal fan, so like I watch the women's game, but generally I tend to watch, you know, the Arsenal, Chelsea, Arsenal, Man United, and sometimes the other games are maybe less interesting because I can already predict that Arsenal's going to win by a lot. Versus maybe the NWSL had a bit more of a parity, right? It was a more competitive league, and so I think it created a lot more, you know, action that made it exciting to watch. So maybe you can share about what your perspective is.
Who want to answer first?
Yeah, I can answer it, or maybe you
No, go ahead.
first. Yeah. I think it's of course a problem. You see it in, especially in the European leagues. Of course, the teams who invest in it are the best. That's also what you've seen. I think in the Netherlands you saw that 3 years ago, Fortuna Sittard was maybe in the top. Now they stopped their women's team. So I think where the investment is where the better clubs are, unfortunately. So I think that's really something in Europe we should take care of. And I think if you look at the NWSL, which is of course also a closed league, right? So I think, and you have a salary cap as well. So that means that you can't have some clubs investing way more than others, which therefore it makes you have many different types of winners, which is more interesting to see. So I think in Europe we have to find a solution for that. Yeah, it's a great point.
Yeah, I would completely agree. I think as a player myself, like competition is everything. You want to go in every week having a good game and giving the fans a great experience to watch a great game. I completely agree with you. The teams that are the best have the most investment. And when you see leagues throughout Europe, because you're right, in the NWSL, a lot of the time you never know who's going to win because majority of the teams are all investing a lot of money into their programs. But that looks less like dollars and more like structure. It looks like quality training environments, top-of-the-line coaches, making sure they have all the recovery tools that they need, making sure they have sports psychologists and mindfulness work and everything that they need to be able to be their best athlete on the pitch, their best performer on the pitch. And when these teams have huge disparities in their leagues between a Chelsea or a team at the bottom of the table, you see that in the competition. So we need clubs to be investing across the board in these leagues, especially in our top leagues.
And if I can add something on that, I see there's like a raising hand. I'm arriving to you. Competition means also creating competition, at least for us in Europe. You see, Mark, you're saying yes. Why? In Europe now, we are creating the UEFA Europa League as well, not only the Champions League. And this allows more clubs and so more countries to enter in European competitions. European competitions means that internally in the league, if you are playing in a lower level country, that could be Portugal or Greece, for example, just to mention something in Europe, is not anymore the only first or the only two top teams that goes to play European competition, Champions League, no? And but you have also the third or the fourth that goes to play in Europa League. So they will create these kind of international games during the weeks, and players starting traveling as well. Not only the best ones, also the high side of the league, but still you can create internal competition, having more visibility. More visibility means clubs gonna go requiring players that they didn't knew because they don't have the salaries and the wages to send scouts to see outside the country the player playing in Portugal. So imagine a club like Braga in Portugal can play against PAOK or let's say, I don't know, Panathinaikos in Greece. They know each other's and they start making deals each other's. And this is also raising standards of players. Why? Players in Greece that always were playing only in their own country, they now traveling start recognizing that it's not only about that, the women's game. There's something better, and they start requiring something better. And if they require something better, the best clubs in their own internal country, or they decide to accept these standards to raise up, or they lose players. So these things is pushing boundaries up. So competition is crucial at this stage, and I hope, I mean, in a couple of years to have as well a UEFA Conference League as well for the women's. You know, I mean, that's why sky is the limit. We need to try to push. That's the word, the key word. Other questions? Yes. Someone want to answer? I'll try, if you.
I can answer. I think it's less of an expectation of the team or of the players, but on the club, it's just good business. Like, if you are going to push your men's team, the club should also be pushing their women's team. I think it's less on the player, like a player is an individual, right? So if they're excited about a team, they should share that. But that's their choice. Same thing on the women's side. Like, if a women's player is excited about their men's team, they should share that too. I think it's more of a question of, for the club, that they should be pushing it. And I think that they should absolutely be pushing their women's team just as much as they push their men's team.
Yeah, and sometimes I think it's also a huge opportunity to, I don't know, for like players itself, like on the men's team, to say, okay, I'm a big supporter of the women's team because what's to lose, right? And I think it's also an easy opportunity for them to increase maybe some likability from female fans as well. And also, I sometimes I don't understand why clubs don't push that a bit more, to be honest. So why don't you use your men's channels to promote your women's team a bit more, or maybe make a video of some of your male players who have an incredible reach to say, come watch the match. Some clubs do it, but I think it can be a huge opportunity also to fill the stadium on the other side. So yeah.
Just to answer from an agency perspective as well, just trying to walking around clubs. Of course, if you speak about better clubs and bigger clubs, they have monies, but as well they need to get assisted from federations. This is the missing point. We need federations to help clubs in making investments. I tell you an example in Italy. In the women's game, we have a huge revolution. 2022, it became professional. Only the first team, only the Serie A, the first division. So that means if you go down, you become automatically amateur in second division. You lose all the rights as a player, the salary, the minimum salary standards, you lose everything, okay? So it's a disaster for a player to go from a first to a second division. And also for clubs, because they want to afford to still pay on the same side, on the same salary, the player that they were having in first division, to try maybe to reach again immediately the first division next year, no, the Serie A. But if they have to pay this amount and they don't have some assistance from federation that they give like they did, no, in the men's side, you know how much monies Italian Federation 𝐓𝐡𝐞 gives to a club that is relegated? 20 million. We don't ask 20 million. Come on, we can build up the Barca women. No, but if you do on a percentage, if you assist, they do not assist. So federations are crucial to help clubs to be in the best shape to sustain the growth of women's game from my side. Other questions? Mark? No. Patrick? Good question.
Yeah, good question. Don't think I have the answer straight away to that, but I don't. So your question is if someone can become too commercially before they are a player. Yeah. Yeah, could be. But what age are we talking about then? Like 12 years old to? Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine that it becomes a risk if you really go full on social media and sharing, I don't know, videos, etc. But then still, I think then they got recognized for probably what they like. So yeah, of course, if there is, of course, a risk if you really look good as a woman, yeah, you get maybe more followers as well. But I think generally the younger children probably are super excited then about becoming a footballer and maybe share more, like, I don't know, putting a ball in the air and these kind of things, and or going to games and showcasing what women's football is about. I don't see a big risk if they are liked because of their appearance or so. So I think that's more like if we're talking about influencers and so I don't see it as a risk, but I can understand from a dad's point of view that it could be a risk. Yeah.
Samantha, you want to answer?
Yeah, I don't know if risk is the right word. I would say, like, as a player myself, like, I think that you want a player to be there for their abilities. There's no harm in a player building up their brand or anything, but I think having that come before your football and using that as a way to, be recruited, I don't know if that's a problem, but I want teammates that are great footballers and want to be there for the football, but there is something to be said for finding those brand opportunities, and I think that it's also important to note that, like, those brands should be looking for footballers based on a lot of things, but young players, especially in the women's game, I think what you're mentioning now is like players are younger and trying and trying and trying and trying, whereas like a lot of young men, like boy footballers, get sponsored by Nike or Adidas at a young age and they don't do anything, right? So I think the real question there is to brands of like, why do these young women, young girls have to put themselves online and show all of this to try and get the attention of one or two brands or some small check that is a minuscule amount compared to the men's check that isn't doing anything. Not nothing, but they're a young player, right? So if you're choosing to support and promote young footballers, support and promote young footballers across the board in the same way and expect the same things. I think it's kind of the system that puts it at a risk, you know? It's not the player that is risky, it is the system that makes it a risky topic or a risky option.
I think we have the last question here. Marcus.
My question is more about the business itself. Okay, I think that we all agree that leagues like NWSL, USL is growing really fast. Those leagues are a franchise system. So when we talk about investment, it's clear that there are private owners, investing money in those leagues. And we have seen that with Chelsea now also. So my question for you is, do you think that the future of women's football is a system, is a franchise system instead of maybe a club system? Because the Super League now in England, they are discussing that also, maybe becoming a franchise system instead. So what do you think about that? Maybe it's better for the players in women's football to have a franchise system or the normal or the system that we have had in men's football for 150 years now?
Hard questions at least.
The easiest questions at the end, right? I think if you look at from like investors who really, if you see that they're going to be more like a franchise, then you have really investors in there who really wants the best for the team and especially for the women's team. So I think yes, there is a big benefit if there is gonna be more investors in the game because they're gonna be fully focused on the women's team. But if we're going to benefit from a franchise, I'm not sure. I think it's so far away from where we now. But what I do see, and with the clubs we are talking to, is that the ones who have outside investments or have sold their women's team, they have really different strategies, and I think they are the ones who are gonna win. And because they see it as a really an investment there where they gonna have really big returns on. So if you look, for example, in the NWSL, if you look at the multiples there from revenue and enterprise value, it's insane. It's like having a high-tech startup, right? So I think investors will see that it's going to be a big opportunity, but then they will also put their resources in there and their interest in there. So I think we will benefit from it, but then, not everyone wants to sell their team or they are in financial trouble and that's why they sell their team, right? So I have no clue, but I would hope so because I think it will be an interesting system.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because you hear a lot about success stories with franchises, obviously, the big clubs about the huge investors. But there are also private owners that own smaller clubs that it doesn't succeed, and actually players have a really unprofessional experience, maybe because the owner doesn't know what they're doing to provide, or they don't know what they need to provide, or they don't actually have enough money or resources to provide that, but they have now committed. And so I think that what becomes really important is for there to be some sort of baseline standard that is, whether that's federations or leagues or UEFA or FIFA, to ensure that there is baseline structural standards for the women's game across the board, and then investors and franchising is coming on top, right? So that there are no teams, no players that are experiencing subpar standards because of a franchise, a privatized system. Because when you have the privatization, you allow for huge disparities. You can have incredible over here, but horrible over here. And the players are the ones that get hurt at the end of the day from that experience. So I think that it can help on top of true structural standards across the board to ensure professionalization of women's football for every country, every professional league that there is.
Okay, if you do not have any question, you don't see, but there's someone who's making this sign to me. I have to close. So if you want to have some questions to those professionals, please come near the stage. But I will say thanks for being here, for attending this panel, and enjoy the Soccer X. Thank you.